Verse 93. When the mind is evolved, forms begin to manifest themselves. Really, if no minds, no forms. The mind is due to the accumulation of delusions since beginningless past. Then the Yogin, by his transcendental wisdom, sees the world shorn of its appearances. So, when the mind is evolved, forms begin to manifest themselves. What's it directing us to? Let's say you were in the room here and I was looking at you. And I look over there, I see a door. So there's a form of you, there's the form of the door. My mind sees a distinction. My mind discriminates between your form and the form of the door. If there was no mind, there would be no distinction, no discrimination. Actually, that sounds okay, doesn't it? If there's no mind, then no distinction can be made. And you might then hang on to some idea, yes, there's a fundamental distinction between me and the door. Because myself and the door are fundamentally different. But let's just say we were in a dream and I was talking to you in the dream, and then I noticed a door. What's the fundamental distinction between you in the dream and the dream door? And you'd have to say, well, there isn't any, because they're both dream. But then how is the distinction made? How can one part of a dream be the form of you and the other part be the form of a door? What's the basis for the distinction, for the discrimination? Well, it's the mind, isn't it? It's the mind that has created the whole scenario, the mind of the dreamer. And it's the mind that creates the distinctions. And you might say, well, that's just a dream, isn't it? What you're saying is correct for the dream. It's not correct. It's not correct for the waking state. There is a definite distinction between me and a door. Well, yes, there is a definite distinction, isn't there? Because this is what the mind does. It creates that distinction. But the whole teaching here of no self is that there is no fundamental distinction. Any distinction, any discrimination is purely made by the mind. That's what this verse is telling us. Forms begin to manifest themselves. It's like looking at the clouds, seeing faces in the clouds, seeing shapes in the stars and the pattern of the stars, seeing shapes in the flames of a fire. All art, all science is based on this ability to make shapes. Some shapes seem to be a bit more permanent or long-lasting than other shapes. But the mind is the great creator of patterns. And it's a debate which goes on in mathematics. Is the mind the creator of the patterns, or is it the discoverer of patterns? Because mathematics is about the discovery of patterns. But we're not really interested in that, because we're interested in this fundamental characteristic of the mind. It is a great discerner of patterns. And it says, really, if no minds, then no forms. So I think from this perspective, there's no distinction between creating a pattern and discovering a pattern. So this might all be quite interesting philosophically, but as spiritual practitioners, what we are interested in is, well, how do we get away from this? How do we get away from this obsession with patterns, with finding patterns that the mind has? This obsession with creating stories and giving reality to these stories. Realities of you, realities of the door. How do we move beyond this? How do we get beyond this? We're told that the mind is due to the accumulation of delusions since beginningless past. I don't actually feel very happy about the idea that all this is rooted in the past, because the past is an idea as well. The past is a notion. So we should be able to make this work in our favour. I think the context here, though, is one of infinite past lives. These ideas have been reinforced, these notions have been reinforced through past lives which have had no beginning in themselves. If you're disposed to think that way, fine. But as I say, I feel there's a little bit of inconsistency here, because there is no beginningless past. In fact, the very notion of a beginningless past seems a bit spurious, a bit self-contradictory. What we're really up against here is the pattern of our moods, our mood habits. This is really what we need to be looking at. This is what we need to be stepping outside, because it's our mood habits which colour our reality, which colour our sense of reality, which colour our feelings and thoughts of reality. It's our pattern of moods. This is the crux of the matter. This is what the enlightenment practitioner has to deal with. When are we not in a mood? When are we not in a bad mood, a good mood, or even a neutral mood? Is it possible to be other than our moods? Is it possible to be on the other side of our moods? This is what the Yogin, by his transcendental wisdom, manages to do. The Yogin is on the other side of their moods. The next few verses are concerned with this very theme, because being able to get on the other side of our moods is this transcendental wisdom. It's about the Yogin seeing the world shorn of its appearances. So we're not just idly speculating or pontificating here about the nature of the world. The nature of the world is how we feel it to be. It's our emotional response to the world. It's the habit of our moods, which not only is a result of our upbringing and our environment and our childhood and adult experiences, it's a result of the disposition that's hardwired into our DNA. So in this sense, it does go back to the beginningless past. This is what we have to deal with. How do we get beyond this? How do we free ourselves from this? Let's continue in the next video.